we're looking at the statement, if it rains, then I'll give you $100. It's not true, incidentally. But let's assume that I've made the statement, if it rains, then I'll give you $100. There are four possible things that can happen. It can rain and I give you the $100. It can rain and I don't give you the $100. It cannot rain and I give you the $100. And it cannot rain and I don't give you the $100. So we want to look at whether each of these events or happenings could contradict my original statement. So we say, well, if it rains and I give you $100, it's pretty clear to everybody that's exactly what I said would happen, and it's not contradicted my original statement. You can't accuse me of having said something that's not true. And then when you got into little philosophical discussions, you know, can you say I was lying if certain things happen? You can't necessarily accuse me of lying if I, in good faith, said, you know, if this happens, then that'll happen. But of course, if it's my $100, I shouldn't have said that without having $100 ready to give you if it happened to rain. So the question of whether I'm lying or whether I just accidentally said something that turned out not to be so, even though I had reasonable assurance that it might be so, you know, there's gray area between saying something that turns out not to be true and intentionally lying. Okay, so anyhow, go back to the statement. If it rains, I'll give you $100. Okay, if it rains and I give you $100, you're not going to say there's anything wrong with that. If it rains and I don't give you the $100, well, certainly you're going to say you didn't tell the truth. Okay, yeah, okay, I did tell the truth. Maybe I was lying. Maybe I actually had the $100 and got mugged on the way over here, and I no longer have the $100 to give you, and it was out of my control. So it wasn't a lie. I was just perfectly intent, but it wasn't true either because it didn't happen. Okay, well, what if it rains? What if it doesn't rain and I give you $100? Well, a lot of people say that, well, that I wasn't telling the truth, but that isn't so, because I didn't say what was going to happen if it didn't rain. I only said what would happen if it did. If it doesn't rain, then there's no way I can be accused of saying something that wasn't true. And if it doesn't rain and I don't give you the $100, well, that's exactly what you would have expected. You would not accuse me of not having been truthful. Yeah, in the case where it doesn't rain and I give you the $100, you might say, you know, you weren't exactly truthful. I'm sure glad. Okay, well, there are ways to depict these different situations. Okay, I can use Venn diagrams. Let this circle stand for all events. Now, first of all, the rectangle stands for all possible events involving the rain and the $100. Okay, this circle encloses all events in which rain occurred. And this circle encompasses all events in which I gave you $100. So what could you say there? Could you say, if it rains, then I gave you $100? Or could you say, well, if I gave you $100, then it rained? You're going to be able to say one of the two. Well, you can't say, if it rained, I gave you the $100, because there's all kinds of events out here where it rains and I don't give you the $100. What you can say is, if you got the $100, then it rained, because the only events in which you got the $100 were events in which it also rained. So in this case, you say this depicts, if you get the money, then it rained. Okay, or you could say, you get the money only if it rained. Okay, what about this? You got the rain here, you got the money here. What would you say? Well, you could say, well, if it rained, you don't get the money. If you get the money, it didn't rain. Okay? In this case, the rain and the money are mutually exclusive. And we could say, of course, then, among other things, if the rain, then not the money. And also, if the money, not the rain. And I would put the words mutually exclusive. on this. What about this? Well, I put down here, you can't say nothing much, meaning there's actually quite a bit you can say about this, but as far as this statement, you can't say too much. I mean, if it rained, you might have got the money for all this diagram tells you, but you might not have. If you got the money, now maybe it rained, maybe it didn't. But of course, maybe this part of this circle is really empty and it should look like this. There's some ambiguity here. It depends on the number of events and whether well, it depends on which regions of this graph might be empty and which might not. So we'll talk more about more or less ambiguous cases later. As I say, there is quite a bit that can actually be said here, but we're not going to address that right now. Okay, and this one says what? The rain circle is here, the money circle is here. So what can you say about that? Can you say, if it rained, you got the money? Okay, well, yeah, because the only way a rain event occurs is if you're within the circle of the rain event, which is inside the circle of the money event. So if it rained, you had to get the money. Or you could say it rained only if you got the money. There's no cause and effect, incidentally, implied by this. Getting the money is not going to cause rain. Although getting the rain might well cause getting money, if I was making an accurate statement. Okay, diagram over here kind of takes off on this one. You got the rain and the money circle. They're overlapping, but neither is inside the other. This is the event, then. If you have an event in this region, that event corresponds to rain and money. It rained and you got money. And of course, out here, you got money, it didn't rain, and it didn't rain. In here, it rained, you didn't get money. So you see that these diagrams can be helpful in clarifying the logic of a statement. And the big point that I make involving the idea of logic and the idea of the logic of statements is we have to have a common agreement about what is logical and what isn't in order to know how to communicate. In order for me to communicate accurately with you, I can't fuzz up the logic. In order for you to communicate accurately with me, I can't misunderstand the logic. I have to trust you to have the right logic. I have to trust you to say things clearly as you mean them, and you have to be able to trust me to do the same. And if we can't agree on this basic logic and what a sentence means, and when somebody was making a true statement, when they were making a false statement, it makes high-level communication that's necessary for all kinds of things more or less at least difficult, if not impossible. You have to start interpreting nuances, and of course we do that anyway. Okay. An event corresponding to the red shaded areas of this diagram correspond to what? Well, one way to express this is you're getting rain, you're getting money, but you're not getting both. So that would express the statement rain or money, but not both. Now, we see a clear connection with set theory. Okay, if the rain circle is the R circle and the dollar circle is the dollar circle, this means you're in the set where you have at least one of the two. You have rain and or money. That's the union of the two sets. And you're not in the intersection where you get both. Okay? So this is where you get at least one. This is where you get both, but we got the prime on it, meaning you don't get both. This is an intersection, so it's one or the other, and it's not both. Meaning one and not the, one and not the other. And that's kind of related to the common statement that we probably experienced in our early analysis of logic, in our early learning of logic, because we weren't analytical at the time when we were 2 years old. Mama said, you do this or this is going to happen. She didn't mean or in the sense of a union. She meant or in this sense. And we call this an exclusive, well, it's an exclusive or. A union of two sets, something's in the set union if it's this or that, meaning this, that, or both. Exclusive or, mama's or, do this or, would be this or, not including the overlap, not including the event where you get both. And mama's or being the first one that we got, not really meaning what we mean by the logical or. That's fairly confusing. You have to get used to the idea of the logical or. And that's kind of where we're going in this chapter. Now this is kind of a preview of some of the things we think about and why we want to think about them. We'll get into more detail as we get into the chapter.